Welcome to the very first episode of the 2-Point Perspective. I'm Elizabeth. The kids call me Lizzo. I am an older adult amateur rider, and I started riding in the 70s when the last thing we thought about was how many strides or a lead change.
And I'm Reynolds, a millennial rider navigating the world of social media, expensive gear, and constant show coverage. Together, we're here to give you a 2-point perspective of life in the saddle across 2 generations.
So now for the big question. Why now? Why would we start a podcast about horses and riding?
Well, honestly, so much is changing and a lot is staying the same. And we want to talk about it all, the good, the weird, and the ridiculous parts about being a rider. Lizzo, give us a little bit of your backstory about how you got into horses and things that were important to you when you first started, and give us let us know a little bit more about you.
So I got a horse from probably the horse trader, and I wish I could remember his name, in Atlanta, for my 13th birthday. And my mother had gotten remarried, and my stepsister was kind of a well-known rider in Atlanta, and she would come out and give me lessons. And I went to a horse show at the Shake Rag Hounds Hunt Club with this $200 horse from the dealer in Atlanta, and he wouldn't get near the very first jump. And I was like, this isn't going to work. So somehow I wound up with a off-the-track, although he never raced, thoroughbred from my stepsister's trainer. And he was extremely talented. In fact, there were a lot of really top riders at the time that were interested in him, but he would buck everybody off when they came to try him. And I didn't have any choice because I was keeping him in somebody's backyard anyway. And so I bought him, and my stepsister would come and give me lessons. And one day it became apparent that I couldn't keep him in the backyard anymore as he got fitter and fatter. And I will say that my mother did the most amazing thing. This was her magic mother moment that I'll never forget. We were going to go look at a barn in north outside of Atlanta that was just a field board situation. And my mother picked me up after school, and we passed the stables where my best friends kept their horses. And I pointed out it was in a subdivision, and I said, that's where Diane keeps her horse. And my mother was like, I'm a real estate agent. There's no way. There's no horses there. I'm like, Mother, there is. And we argued, and finally she turned around the car, pulled into the subdivision. You can just see all these houses. And she goes, see, I told you, it's just houses. No, you got to go that way. Okay, so herky-jerky, we finally go down the hill. You can see the barn is over there. Okay, fine. There's a roundabout, and she's like, well, let's keep going. I'm like, well, now that we're here, can't we just go see Diane? So we drive down to the barn, and we get out, and my friend and her mother are standing there, and they're like, what are you doing? And my mother and I said, oh, we're going up to look at Burton's to see if it would be a good fit for Cobar, to be on full, outside board. And my friend's mother said, why don't you think about coming here? Look how nice the stalls are. And there's my horse.
Oh, I don't even know if I knew that.
Yeah, in the stall.
Oh,
and
my
so
gosh.
My mother and her mother, they had a trailer. And during the day, they had gone to get the horse. So the whole thing was a total setup.
That is incredible. I knew that that's where you ended up. I don't know I knew about your mom's surprise.
Oh, yeah. That was incredible.
That is amazing.
So then I rode with Sunny Stevens, who was, in the end, she passed away about 3 years ago, but in the end, won all kinds of teaching awards, just wanted to be a teacher, which is something I think we will touch on as we go. But anyway, how did you start?
So it was in my family in a lot of ways. My mom and her brother grew up riding, and my grandmother, I was one of the younger grandchildren, and she's like, well, all grandchildren need a pony. So she got us a little pony named Cotton. And so we kept her at my aunt's, who was not far from where we lived, and had little lessons with her. And that's how I got into it. I mean, there's a picture of me somewhere on the back of Cotton with a passy. So I was just all about it, all business, according to my mom. Like, I can do it myself. And my aunt also bred horses. So when I had gotten really into it and I was getting closer to 7, 8, my mom decided that we would move barns to where I could get more regular lessons and kind of see about doing some showing and stuff like that. And my aunt actually had me come over to her farm, and she said, "Hey, I need you to sign this paper." I said, "Me?" So I signed it. And she had transferred ownership of one of the mares that she bred. Her name was Forte. And Forte made her way over to the farm where I was riding at the time. And so she actually bred and gave me my very first horse.
Oh, that's so cool.
That I rode from when I was 8. And we had her up until I was in my young 20s. So we had her all that time. And she was green. She was a small horse, but she was big to me at the time. she was like 15-1, but I was 8. My feet barely went past the saddle. And while she was an amazing horse, she was very green, and she had a rip-roaring buck in her. So we both grew. She didn't have the cut for dressage, and had some moments in the dressage ring. It wasn't for her, but excelled in the hunter world. But she taught me grit. She taught me grit and determination. And, I know there's the don't put a green rider on a green horse, but I wouldn't change my story and learning how to ride her and being really brave to do the things that I did, looking back on it, on a horse that I grew so much with over such a long period of time.
That's kind of the way it happened with me too, because I kept this horse in somebody's backyard.
Right.
And we had to clean the stalls ourselves, feed and water, order the shavings, get rid of the manure. I mean, it was in the middle of Atlanta, believe it or not.
Yeah,
it was
that's
like
wild.
Down the street from the governor's mansion. In fact, when the governor's mansion opened, I rode my horse up to the governor's mansion, and I remember he pooped. And this gardener came running out after me with a shovel, telling me that I had to clean it up. And I was like, "I'm sorry, I'm not getting off this horse."
No, you ran away. Got away.
We did. We went back home. But anyway, yes, he was extremely green. He was only like 5 and was barely even broken when I got him. And if I remember, when I went to Sonny's, she rode a little bit still, but not as much, and that was before the days of even having professional riders.
Oh, yeah, I mean...
So, yeah, if you had a green horse...
It was a lot of... Where I rode, our trainer was... One of her gifts, I think, was her ability to... If you were scared or worried, she had this ability to... instill this confidence in you. I mean, if you were scared to jump a little X, I mean, I think she still does it, but she would be on the ground and she'd run beside you and jump the jump with you. And for some reason, you're like, "Oh my God, think about that now. What if your leg gets tangled up?" But we were like, "Oh, she's with us. We've got it. We're going to be able to do it." And sometimes it could be a 2-foot jump. She'd be like, "Okay, I'll come do it with you." But she just always made sure that you were good, and she wanted you to believe in yourself. And even if you weren't the most talented, or you were sort of wishy-washy on how much you really loved it, she wanted you to, if nothing else, believe in your ability to do something. And I will always be grateful for her for that. And the thing is, the same way. I mean, she would get on the horses and ride them sometimes, but a lot of the time it was the older group of girls that maybe had more experience that would get on our horses if they were being a little naughty that day or needed somebody a little stronger than the smaller kids. But we did the same thing, I mean, all summer.
And see, that's what's been the toughest part for me, kind of coming back to the sport, because in my mind, I remember being taught by a teacher how to teach my horse.
Right.
And today, I don't really think that can happen. I'm not sure that it's I mean, this is so much of the change.
Right.
In today's world, people are worried about getting hurt, and also professionals make their money by training your horse. So
Right.
your horse might be in training board, training rides, whereas when I grew up, that wasn't even really an option.
Right.
I mean, yes, there were trainers who obviously were riding someone's investment horse.
Sure.
And were showing that horse in the green, but I showed my horse in the green.
Right.
Hunters. In fact, I'll never forget, my mother was so upset. There was a guy who had a horse, he showed a lot in Aiken and around Atlanta, and his name was Pete Bostwick, and we sat in Wellington at the luncheon, remember?
Oh, yeah.
And I said, I know your grandfather.
That's right. I remember that now.
But my mother used to get so upset because she was like, how can this man, be showing against you junior girls? But that's what you did.
Everybody was like intermingled. Yeah.
And then we had our own division in the juniors. You showed your own horse.
Sure.
But there was not professional riders or your trainer. It was more unusual to have that.
It existed, but was very small.
Right.
Well, I think too, going off of training rides and stuff like that, and you riding your horse and it not just being an investment. I think what I have found bringing my current horse along that's the most helpful is okay, sure, he needs a little more assistance than I am knowledgeable to give him, and I'm learning how to ride him and all of this other stuff. So when one of his trainers would get on him and she'd ride him and she'd let me know, like, okay, this is what I've been doing with him.
Right.
And so instead of it going training ride, lesson, jump around your course and leave, it's training ride, I come for a lesson, and we're not just working on can you count 5 strides, which I struggle with, and then or counting in general. But okay, you do have a green horse and you do have the skill to be able to do some of the things I'm doing, but I've got to teach you that skill. And I love that portion of it, and I know you do too, but you do see less of that, I think, when there's training rides going on and then you show up for your lessons. Sometimes the lessons aren't as maybe intricate or challenging even maybe as they should be. And so I've always found it fun, the more people you can watch give a lesson or take part in their lessons, just because I think you pick up something everywhere if you're willing to to receive it. But I wish that there was a little bit more of the what you were saying that would happen back then, which is I've got to learn how to ride this horse. And that's a skill that you can carry to many horses.
Well, and I think that this is such a big discussion right now that everybody's been talking about the loss of horsemanship. And I think that in the 70s, you had the opportunity more often to participate in learning horsemanship.
Oh, yes.
And I would say when we've talked before, you've said that you did as a young person as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the things at the barn where I grew up that we were very involved in our group was big, was 4-H. And part of that is you got to learn how to braid your own horse. And then you go to this show and, your parents can't help you. You've got to do it all, or your friend has to help you. And so you kind of get thrown into all of these different skills you didn't really know that you didn't have. And so you get introduced to it that way, and then we'd go to local shows. But I mean, all of the stuff that occurred with our horses when we were kids, I mean, yeah, obviously if we weren't there, they got fed and they got turned out and all of that other stuff. But all of the kids showed up in the afternoon after school. And then in the summertime, I mean, we were there from the moment a parent or grandparent was dropping us off, at least, if not later, until 3:00 in the afternoon.
Right.
And it was, everybody's got to get fed breakfast. And I mean, we're talking, good 20 some horses. Everyone's got to get turned out. Troughs have to be scrubbed and filled. Stalls are getting clean. Shavings are getting added. And there were no automatic waterers. I mean, we had one spigot and this hose of multiple hoses connected that we dragged around from barn to barn to trough, and we're talking a hike. So then, you drag the hose and then you get to the trough and you're like, why isn't the water working? So you got to like follow the hose back to find where the kink is. But I mean, we did all of that before we got on our horse. But one of the great things is you touched your horse every day. You picked out their feet every day. You were putting your hands on your horse every day. And I think that is one of the parts of riding in this sport that I love so much, or even if you just do it as a hobby, is knowing your horse. I mean, you can walk out on any given day and see, oh, the eyelid's just a little swollen. I mean, they might be totally fine, but it's something you notice. You know their personality, you know when they're off, you know when they're not right. You learn the little nuances about them. And that to me is part of the lost art. I mean, and then there's the care, but...
Well, it's funny too, like even if you break it down even further, when you were talking about 4-H and braiding and all that,
yeah.
I mean, I braided. I don't know who taught me. I don't remember, but I braided, and that was one of the ways that I made money to be able to horse show. So I would get up early and go braid 2 of my friends' horses, get some money, and that would pay for my entry fees. I remember when I moved to Virginia 15 years ago, and that's when I basically started riding again. I stopped for 30 whatever years, and I know how to braid.
Right.
So I was going to braid my own horse. And I remember like my trainer was like, whoa, no, we hire a braider to do that. And I'm like, but I can do that, and that's how I made money. I mean, I could save myself that money. And so the explanation was, and it made sense, kids need to focus on horse showing and being prepared to come and horse show, not to be up all night long, because they're having to braid their horse. And I thought, okay, I mean, whatever. But you realize that that's a lost art. I mean, well, it isn't a lost art, but it's now a specialized art.
Yes.
And
a career for many people.
Yeah, and I mean, having recently been working with a young lady who's braiding and trying to show, and I don't know how she does it, because she's braiding many horses all night long. She goes back at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning to the hotel, sleeps for a couple of hours, and then comes and tries to horse show. And I mean, so I understand, what the trainer was saying had changed since I had been gone.
Oh, sure.
However, how did we do it? I don't know. I mean, maybe we didn't take on braiding 7 horses. You maybe just braided more. Your own and one
a friend. Yeah. Well, I know how to braid a mane, but I'm not very good at it. I don't know. There's something about my technique that's not quite right. But I am good at braiding a tail. So that has come in handy.
It comes in handy when you want to do a French braid for yourself.
I can't. I braid myself, can't do it. But a horse is, and I don't know why, just one day I'm sitting in the barn messing around, and I was like, I really think I could figure out how to do this. And I just really liked it for all the things, like the braiding the mane, I'm like, I'll pay for that all day long. I'm not very good at it. One braid's going this way and one's going that way, but the tails I'm pretty good at. And that's come in handy. I'm able to do it for myself, if nothing else. That cuts a little cost. And even sometimes our braider has been like, I'm a few minutes behind. You have an extra hour. Can you help me, put some tails together? I'm like, absolutely. Be happy to do it. Helps me, helps her. Good skill to just have in the pocket.
Totally. But I just think that, unfortunately, that doesn't happen very often anymore.
You're right. So tell me a little bit from your perspective, the goal for our podcast here. What do you see this podcast being able to do?
Well, I'm hopeful that people will engage and enjoy the back and forth that we have from different perspectives. And I'm hopeful that people will send us your stories, send us your questions, tell us things you'd like for us to talk about. We hope to have lots of opportunities to share, whether it's from my perspective, from your perspective, but also from other professional perspectives, to just talk about all the changes and how the business is different, but how we can keep the generational interest going and
keep it possible. I mean, that's a big thing now, but
well, that's one more thing that we should talk about is, what does make this accessible? And a lot of people right now are discussing accessibility and how, as we've just shared, for me, it was not necessarily easy, but it was something that was accessible for someone who didn't have a whole ton of money,
right.
Because there were work opportunities even as a youngster,
right.
Which I don't necessarily see in all barns today.
Right.
And so what do we do about that?
Well, I mean, right. I think that's the $1 million question is what do we do in a sport where even our, governing body right now seems to be wanting to outpace people in cost. And, everything in the world is more expensive today than it used to be, of course. And I think everybody's feeling that. But, how do we get back to that being at the top biggest rated horse show doesn't always have to be the goal, that you can be a successful rider, a really good horsewoman or man, by doing things the way that, they've always been done. And where do those opportunities lie? I mean, those are things I'd love to hear from people that say, okay, I've got the program where people can pay X, Y, and Z, but they can also work this part off for me. Because that's also a thing. People have a really hard time finding help, but also the pay for that help isn't all that great either. So if there's like a trade situation that can go on to give a kid an opportunity to be introduced to something.
I've seen a professional in this area in particular who often advertises for working students and outlines very clearly what they're going to get back.
Oh,
and I think
cool.
that's a big thing. It's not, if more professionals, even if they could just carve that out for one or two people,
right,
just to help, I think it would make a big difference.
Well, and I think too, there obviously USEF is getting a ton of pushback with the raising of the prices, and that could be a whole episode. But at the same time, we've sort of done this thing where we've shot ourselves in the foot. It's like, go bigger, go better, highest level, highest prices over here, and shoot for that star. And meanwhile, we've got these lesson programs and smaller barns that are not as successful as they once were because people are moving on to where you pour in the money. And it's like both of them, in my opinion, could be successful and have a huge benefit to our entire community of riders and horses as a whole. And it's sort of like, how do we make sure that those, the just pour your money into it side doesn't wipe out the small guy.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm just thinking, do we almost even need a separate organization just for the general?
Well, it is interesting because I feel like when I was growing up, the local circuit was enormous. Just enormous. And the morning divisions were huge, and it took forever. I'd be like, oh my God, when are we going to get to the children's division? Midnight. And then as I got a little bit older, like later teenage, it was sort of like maybe the local shows were busy, but they weren't, like the entries were not what I remember them being when I was a kid. And now I feel like there's almost like a little bit of a shift back. And I see a ton of local organizations and associations doing a lot to try and give back to, the participants and have fun prizes. And you can, I always wanted to win a cooler. Haven't done that yet. My horse has. But, saddle pads and halters and leather goods and, and I think too, like there's a lot of good camaraderie coming back to it. And it almost makes you think, okay, if this is what our big governing body is doing to us, which is pushing out the people that are just inching by to be able to afford to show on that level, then maybe the thing is you go back, you support your local organizations, and you go for the 1 or 2 day local horse shows, and you have a blast, and you don't have to break the bank in the process.
Right.
I mean, the rings are dressed up, the jumps are nice, the people are fun, and it's not a rat race sort of thing.
Yeah, it almost seems like somebody needs to concentrate on marketing back that.
Well,
again.
And from the feedback I've gotten from some friends, they were like, it is competitive. And that's what I love. I'm like, good. Let's let it be competitive. That's the whole point.
It is.
That's fine if I'm not the winner, but I want to be beat.
Well, and the problem is even if you're on the lower end of trying to break into the higher end,
right,
you're probably never going to be as successful because you won't have the horse that you need that.
Well, as I like to call it, the pay to play.
Yeah, you won't be able to. You might get a low ribbon.
Right, and for me,
that's good.
Yeah, when I was breaking into the rated shows as a junior, my horse didn't have the ability to do the 3-6. We also didn't have the 3-3 juniors at the time. So it was either children's at 3 foot or 3-6 juniors. And I was like, okay, well, we'll do the children's. And he got some decent ribbons, and he was a thoroughbred in a market of warm bloods coming in. That was that shift was really, really prevalent at the time. But we got some decent ribbons. And for me, when that first started happening, I was like, oh my God. I got some ribbons against really nice horses. I mean, my horse is nice, but I'm holding my own. But then there's that, and that's a good thing, competition and drive and determination to want more, to do more, is a good thing. But I did get out horsed eventually. I could put in the best round, my horse being the best he had been that day, couldn't have asked for anything more. And you still got the lower ribbon, or you didn't get a ribbon at all. And that's hard, especially when you love the horse and you believe in the horse and all that, to be like, okay, so I have to shift to be able to play the game and level my playing field.
Well, that's exactly what happened.
And that's hard. That's hard for a lot of people to do.
That's exactly
what
happened.
Without my mom, I wouldn't have been able to.
Well, that's exactly what happened to me. I mean, when I grew up riding, everybody was riding thoroughbreds. I mean, Idle Dice and
everybody.
All the famous the horses were all thoroughbreds.
Yeah, and show jumpers to local shows to rated shows, all of them.
All of them. So when I came back to riding, that's all I knew. I don't even know. I never sat on a warm blood in my life. I didn't know how hard to kick. And and so and I remember my just being determined and doing the adult amateurs, and my trainer said, if you want to be competitive, it's an expensive sport, but it's a lot of money to go to these shows and not really be competitive because of your horse.
Well, and that's where we got too. It's tossing all of this money, and you're doing your best, and you are laying it all out on the field, if you will, and laying it, leaving it. But and then to not be rewarded, that's a gut punch.
Totally.
And like you said, you're tossing all this money into it. So you're like, you got to be joking. So I have picked and choosed and done all these things about the show I'm going to go to, and this is where we're going to spend our money, and I am the most prepared I've been, and takes your breath away, and that's hard. That's a hard thing to go through, but anyways. All right, so as we're winding down here, we want to invite you guys, share a cringeworthy barn story or something you think would be fun for us to talk about, or a topic, or something that's happened to you or that you can relate to. We're really excited to start on this journey with you guys. So let us know. Drop us a line.
That's a wrap for our first episode, and we'd love for you to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review if you enjoyed our stories or not. And don't forget to join our community online.
Let's ride!